So that's about Kendra in the Greek and Babylonian astronomy. You mentioned Surya Siddhanta, and you base a lot of your findings on Surya Siddhanta. You also place it in deep antiquity. Now, I've seen this, a lot of time, especially on the social media debates. There is this great confusion about something in Surya Siddhanta about the precession model. And the Surya Siddhanta, it is argued by some of your very worthy adversaries that this precession model is a to and fro model, like a pendulum.
Yeah.
That the precession occurs not in a smooth, what is called a top-like motion.
Right.
Because that is what precession is. I have read in science, and the precession is world over recognized as a movement that takes place in the manner of a top, while it moves around.
Yeah.
At the same time, it also moves a little bit up and down.
Yeah.
So that is the precession, and then if you trace it, then it forms a circle, a very smooth circle, around which the movement takes place. But because I have been trying to figure it out, how it is possible that such a precession can take place in a pendulum-like fashion, or what exactly is the confusion?
Yeah.
Can you please explain it?
Yes, thank you. So okay, so let's start with the Surya Siddhanta, and then we'll come to the opponent that you are referring to. Now, well, I can combine those two. So, for example, to be fair to this so-called opponent, more than likely you are referring to Dr. Jayashree Sarnathan.
Oh yes, she never comes to a debate though.
That's okay. I mean, her choice, right? I mean, everyone, this is voluntary in nature. Many of the people complained, say, so don't be surprised if you get phone calls, people complaining that why are you inviting Nilesh, okay? And then naturally, what would be your response? You say, hey, abhi aa jao, right? You say, abhi aa jao. Then they say, no, that's not the point. Okay. They don't want to come. They don't want to have a skin in the game.
That's a different kind of fascism, actually.
Yeah. But to be fair to her, so what she's claiming is, I don't want to even go there, but yeah, just so that our audience understands. So as a precession, the phenomenon, and by the way, that is also, maybe you should ask that question afterwards, because they also, the Western Europe also thinks again the same, likes of David Pingree, and even, I don't know if Konrad else say things that way, that even the precession understanding also came from Greek to us. That is also another whole myth going on. But in this one, there is a chapter in Surya Siddhanta, and there are many other things discussed, called Tri Prashnadhikar. Okay, so adhikar is like a what do you say, like a method or method, something like that. And Tri Prashnadhikar, we'll not go into the detail of that. That is the chapter where some shlok, some verses are given in such a fashion, if interpreted in a certain way, they can actually give rise to the interpretation that Dr. Jayashree Sarnathan talks about, which is to say, it's like a back and forth motion. Like, easy way to explain is the wiper of the car, like, to clean the car glass, of the water, going back and forth with, say, center at some nakshatra, and it can go 27 degree on one side from that nakshatra, come back to the position, go 27 degree on another side. Based on those few verses, it appears that this whole thing will never go beyond a total length of 54 degrees out of 360 degree. Okay, so that's what the impression it gives. That will be a huge
actually that is it is very clear that I think in our entire Pramana Shastra or the epistemology, it is very clear that if a Shabda Praman or a word in the scripture is in conflict with a Pratyaksh Praman or direct evidence, then direct evidence has to prevail.
Correct. Correct. And I'll give you a couple examples of that, what you just said. So Surya Siddhanta was like one of the key Siddhanta in Indian astronomy. So is Aryabhatiya, and there were many others. Like there were 15, 16, 20 that we can at least name them. Now the later astronomers, what happens in astronomy is that the things appear to be constant for a very long time, but in some sense they are slowly changing. The change is so slow that people don't see the reason to change it, and suddenly one day it shocks them, saying, hey, this is not anymore matching with what is written in the text. And so when, therefore, if you look at Aryabhatiya, even Surya Siddhanta is updated like 1400 years ago. And we'll talk about Surya Siddhanta updates, because that is how we can define its antiquity, going back to like more than 16,000 years, even more than 26,000 years, more than 40,000 years possibly. Now people really emotionally choke and fall off their chairs if you talk of 12,000 years. Forget about 26,000 years and 40,000 years. But as you said, the pratyaksha evidence is there. I mean, either you have to explain in some other fashion, or you have to accept it. But my point is, the likes of Brahmagupta, Bhaskaracharya, Ganesh Daivadnya, Lele Shastri, S.B. Dikshit, they all are emphasizing, even in the religious fashion, I would say religious in the sense of a ritual, they are saying, if your Ganit, like if your Surya Siddhanta Ganit gives you a certain number, say for a certain tithi or a certain time and certain position, and your Druka Pratyay, meaning what you see actually in the sky, it deviates from it, you have to accept the one what you see actually in the sky.
Quite right. That is the Pratyaksha Praman.
Pratyaksha Praman. And all of these, like Brahmagupta, Bhaskaracharya, even whoever was updating Surya Siddhanta 1400 years ago, Aryabhatiya around that same time, they have always looked at the astronomy parameters, which over a period of time they need to be calibrated and reintroduced into the text. So Bhaskaracharya did that. I mean, that's why you can see the orbital periods of planets are different than Surya Siddhanta versus Bhaskaracharya versus Aryabhatiya versus what we see today with the modern astronomy. And they are very, very consistent. So back to this. So now there is a sufficient evidence in our all ancient Indian narratives, including Surya Siddhanta, to say that this interpretation of Jayashree Sarnathan is decisively false. So what might have happened? I don't know the answer. I'm going to only speculate that possibly some of the additional verses that might be there in that chapter on Tri Prashnadhikar, it might be trying to say something different. And I have my own theory. I mean, it's a conjecture and I'm not very interested in it. But sometime once I write a paper or something, we'll discuss that. Like why the motion might be perceived like this. And it might be explained in some other context, not the regular precession of the equinoxes, which indeed goes through a complete circle. But some of the verses might be lost. Therefore, that connection might be lost. And now someone, for example, Jayashree Sarnathan, and she's not the only one possibly, but the evidence in the Surya Siddhanta itself, then Mahabharata, Ramayana, but all our Brahmanas, Samvitas, all other astronomy texts is more than sufficient to convince us that it is not this back and forth. Because if it is back and forth, then basically what we are saying right now is, right now it is the point of spring equinox is around Uttara Bhadrapada right now. Okay. And so how far back it can go? So do you know what Jayashree Sarnathan is saying? So it will go for another like 1,000 years, or I forgot now, another, we are at 2100, not 1,000 years, another 300 years or 200 years. It will go up to say further point to Purva Bhadrapada, and it should start return. I mean, instead of going in a circle, it should come back. And how far back it needs to go? By her calculation itself, it will not even reach Kritika, because it has to be 27 plus minus. Now, we have Kritika as a first nakshatra. We have a Mrugashirsha Ardra as a first nakshatra, meaning the spring equinox. We have a series of nakshatras mentioned as a first nakshatra. So her theory is just instantaneously falsified. But, if she's enjoying it, I mean, I honestly don't think it's worth my time to spend, arguing with her. And she doesn't want to argue. I mean, she has made her mind. Now she thinks all that needs to be done is to justify it. Even she says the same thing about Mahabharata war. In her mind, the Mahabharata war is decided. It is decided long time ago. Our job is to find the evidence by hook or crook and justify it. That is our job, as she sees it.
Okay, so that is that.